Today's guest is an amazing, phenomenal musician. He plays not just one guitar, but two guitar necks on one guitar at the same time. And if you've ever watched any of his videos or if you've ever seen him in concert, you know that he is something special. I can't wait to bring you this interview with Mark Kroos.
In a culture that scoffs at honor, you can rise up to lead and to shine. It's time to be the best man that you can be. This is the Manlihood ManCast. Here's your host, Josh Hatcher.
Gentlemen, Mark Kroos is a personal friend of mine. I've gotten to know him over the years. He has come into town and played. In the most recent time, he got to stay here with my family, and I can't tell you how much of a great time we had with him. So I can't wait for you to listen to this interview that's coming up with Mark. But before we do that, I want to remind you, if you want to become a better man, we've got a couple avenues for you. The first one is the Manlihood Man Cave. It's free. It's our free private Facebook group for men only. Just go into Facebook, type in Manlihood Man Cave, answer a couple questions, we'll approve you. You can then join the group, and we will talk to you. It'd be great to see you there. The next thing, and this is something that's in the works, we're developing a program that's going to help men like you to become a better husband, a better father, a better leader, a better citizen. And there's going to be some courses, things you can learn. There's going to be lots of free ebooks. There's going to be some coaching where you can talk about the things that you want to accomplish, and we can help you break that down with a system into a plan and hold you accountable to that plan with some coaching calls. So I cannot wait to see you be a part of this. It's coming soon. If you want to be one of the first people to know, just go to manlihood.com/brotherhood. Get us your email address. We'll let you know as soon as we launch. Again, guys, Mark Kroos, phenomenal musician, phenomenal man. This interview is something special. Let's give it a listen. So, Mark, I'm really glad to have you today. Actually, you are my first in-person guest, which I'm really excited about because I get to kind of use my
That is
cool
awesome, Josh. I didn't even know that.
Yeah. All my guests so far have been kind of virtual, and that's been fun, but it's kind of cool to be able to be face-to-face. So I thank you for saying, hey, you know what? Let's just shoot it when we come up on tour to do the concert.
Yeah.
So
I appreciate you having me. It's going to be a fun concert today. I guess by the time everybody sees this, the concert will be long gone and over with and everything. Yeah. And the good time will have been had.
Yeah, maybe they'll catch you for the next concert,
So. I will be back to Northwest Pennsylvania. I love it here.
Awesome. So why don't you tell me a little bit about, Mark, about the music that you make? Because, some people just get up and they sing songs and they play guitar. You're doing something a little different.
Yeah, so before the pandemic, I toured for 10 years as an instrumental guitar player. And the thing that I do, the main thing that I do that I kind of built my career off of was I played two guitar necks at the same time. And that's a double neck Ovation guitar. It's an acoustic guitar, And I use a technique, you call it tapping, or hammer-ons and pull-offs, where you press down on the string and then you release the string. And you do that with different notes. You can make, with that combination of those hammer-ons and pull-offs, you can make entire melodies with just one hand. Then you can bring the same idea over to the other hand, add in things like hitting the strings with your thumb, hitting the body of the guitar. You can get a whole drum set going on the guitar. And it's almost sort of that one-man band kind of feel without putting cymbals between my knees. I haven't started doing that just yet, you know. And it's something that's really fun to take that instrument and see what's possible to do with it, because it's really opened up a lot of creative doors. Like, oh, I didn't think it was possible for me to do that, but yeah, and it's been encouraging and empowering, and it's really been a blessing to have it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I think it's fun to watch because it's different. You know, not like
Yeah.
you see people doing the tapping and some of that kind of music, but they're not doing two guitars at the same time. And that's, I think, kind of what makes, and I know that's not the only kind of music you do, but that's kind of the core of it. And I think it makes it fun.
That's what ends up on the posters.
Right,
You know,
right.
it's the reason that folks bring me in, is that kind of thing. The pandemic, you know, is kind of funny. I put my guitar just in its case during the pandemic, and at least that double neck guitar, when we came up on that, my wife Nora and I, we had been on the road for full time for 2 years at that point, and I was getting pretty burnt out. You know, I was getting this cruise ship show together, almost. I mean, and it was a cool show, and I was excited about it. Mm-hmm. But it was kind of like I was speeding toward a wall. It was almost like I was kind of trying to get out of, like, I was just getting so tired. I was getting so sick, man. Mm-hmm. Like just fatigued, exhausted. Like, and we had this show that we'd put together, and we filmed it at Eastern Kentucky University, and it was awesome. It was great. And the guys that helped us put that show together, they were phenomenal. And we were so excited about this cruise ship show, even though, like, deep down, I am kind of burning out at the time. And we filmed the show, and it was great. And they did a great job. And then the pandemic hit, and just like all the wind just went right out of the sails. And it was just, I did one virtual concert after the pandemic hit. And I was just like, I did not transfer over to the streaming thing very well. You know, I did not transfer over to that. And I'd like to get better at it, but I essentially, I needed that to happen. I mean, like it needed to happen and it was hard, man. Like, it was hard to have something that, you know, that I'd worked on for 10 years, you know, that I'd put, like, really, you know, I'd made it my life's work, as you call it, or whatever. And I needed that to fall apart, man. Like sometimes we need those sorts of things to just sometimes you just those things that bring you down into what, like, feel like your depths, you know, like down into the pit. Like, sometimes that's where you really find, you know, who you are.
So did you, when you hit that spot, like, again, everything fell apart, so you're not touring, you're not doing music, because nobody was doing anything at that time. Everybody was started 2 weeks to flatten the curve, and then we're all like, how long is this going to last? So now your income's
how big
dried
is
up.
this curve?
Yeah, your income's dried up, you're not going anywhere, you're not doing anything, you're not playing.
Yeah.
So you needed that, but it probably didn't feel like what you wanted at that time.
Oh, no. I mean, what we need is very rarely what we want. Right?
Yeah.
Like, no, there was a lot. You know, I'd say it was the first year or so that was kind of like, sort of like the descent into, I think maybe I'll talk about this at the concert tonight, that, you know, before the pandemic, I was a professional guitarist. I said, I am I am my career. And when you and I mean, I'm not gonna say everybody does this, but I'd say anybody who's very career oriented, at least I think at some point, starts to really believe that they are what they do. And I believed that I was nothing without what I did. I believed I was nothing without my guitar playing. Like I would have honestly answered you that too, like before the pandemic. That is, like, that's what defines me, And when you believe you are something and that thing gets taken away, what the heck are you then, man? Like, what the heck are you? And so that was a lot. That was a lot of the soul searching. That, man, it took some time. Like, it took some time. It took some time to physically heal, and to just really, really come to peace. I think for me, a lot of it was coming to peace with the idea that I might not be able to do music full time anymore. Like the idea that I might not be able to play another concert. I mean, about a year in, we still weren't doing live music, About a year in, it was like, and coming to that peace was really, really important for me. It was very humbling. It was very, and I just found, I found within it just so much more fun learning to just be human, so much more fun learning to be human, putting time into friendships, putting time into my marriage, just all these things that make you human. Your success, your career, that's fine. Like, it's good, but those things that make you human, that just of savoring life, walks in nature, I always thought that when I was out on the road and I go to like a wonderful community, like Open Arms Church, like I'm playing at tonight. Every time I've been to your church, I always feel very, very welcome. And I would always kind of use that as I'm an extrovert. I do get my energy from people. I love it, but I always would kind of try to use that as a replacement for friendships, that because I'm going into a community for a day, I hang out with people. I love hanging out with people, but then we're gone. We're gone, and I'm not going to see people for another 2 or 3 years. And I think I would, for a long time, I wouldn't really keep friends. I wouldn't have friends back home, partly because we didn't keep a home base for a long time.
Well, yeah, without the home base, it's like you're nomadic.
Yeah.
You would go and rent an Airbnb and...
Yeah, but even when we lived in Charlotte for 4 years, I had access to some really good potential friends that I never really built those friendships like I wish I had, But this is all part of the learning process. This is all part of life. It's all part of, the human thing,
Yeah. When you talk about, being faced with the question of, okay, I am Mark Kroos, acoustic guitarist. Now who am I? Like, I think so many men will hang that hat of their identity on their career, or whatever. But like what happened? Like, your purpose is bigger than that. Your purpose is the same whether you lose your hands in a horrible accident, or not. And the guitar is maybe part of your mission or part of your vision, but is not why you exist. So some of that was you rediscovering that.
Yeah, it's there was a lot of depression, and that's but here's the thing about that was always there. Like, that was not a new thing, I mean, like, and I mean, not to get too dramatic or anything, but pretty bad depression in the past, it happened when I was still on tour, like some really, really dark stuff, honestly. And it had been there since I was a kid. And a lot of it was was a lot of inner work on that. A lot of going in. We talked about this a little bit last night when I got in. Feeling old feelings, and a lot of that comes into inner child work, thinking about, I think I had a good childhood, but everybody has some sort of, we'll call it is trauma, but trauma, when you say trauma, it sounds so dramatic. But
it rhymes with drama.
Yeah, it rhymes with drama. but trauma, can be something as simple as feeling your parents' disappointment for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's heavy.
Or getting picked on in school.
Or, man, how about that one?
Mm-hmm. Or getting let down by a teacher or another girl that you like, maybe, and she's not interested in you. Yeah, that kind of stuff can shape the way you see the world.
But as men, and especially as Lutherans, no, sorry, I was raised Missouri Synod Lutheran, but as men in our culture, at least while we were growing up, we're taught to push down those feelings. I shouldn't even necessarily just say as men. We are not, a big phrase is don't cry. Mm-hmm. Don't let out those feelings. And a lot of my work was going into old feelings, feeling old feelings, seeing how they impacted my career. Do you meditate?
Mm-hmm.
I run into Christians sometimes that are hesitant to meditate because they feel like it's all about them. Whereas, prayer is, talking to God. I tend to think of prayer as talking to God, which is wonderful. But I always think of meditation as communion with God in that way. And listening. Yes, that's even better there, Josh. Yeah. And so a lot of it, I feel like when you listen, a lot of the time when you listen, if you can really get yourself in that mind quieted spot, that spot between thoughts, you'll get answers, ask questions and you'll get answers. But yeah, as far as disidentifying from, as far as answering the question of, if I'm not my career, what am I? At the end of the day, you, me, and every single one of us is a child of God. That's what we are at the core of all of it. And that's infinitely more valuable than any success, that I could ever have. I'm sure it probably sounds like a cop-out even to some people, because I probably would have said that, before the pandemic even. Like, who am I? Well, of course I'm not my guitar playing, I'm a child of God. Right. But to recognize that what that means is that you are loved. Like you are loved regardless of if you're successful, regardless of if you're, my parents were always so proud of me. My parents were proud of me because of my guitar career. I mean, I think they would say they're proud of me for other things, but I always saw with my guitar career, hey, I'm gonna do what my dad does. I'm gonna support a family, but I'm gonna do it with music, which is really hard to do. I'm gonna do it, and I was so proud of myself for being able to do that. So with taking it away and knowing that I'm still loved, knowing that there is still love for me, like that's empowerment, man. Like that's real empowerment, and that's it's been very, very beautiful.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Did you find working through that process, were there other areas in your life that were kind of also butting up against it? I know, like, in my own life, going through a very similar kind of breakdown almost, when the pandemic hit, everything changed so fast for so many of us. There was, my wife and I, here we are trying to grow and and have a stronger relationship, and then we're butting heads with each other, because we're both working through. Did you have any of that with your marriage or anything else? Or
At the end of the day, I mean, the pandemic, it definitely brought Nora and I much closer together. I mean, and we were already close. We were very close. We were touring together for 2 years, and we traveled very, very well together. We did. I think there was this is something that is, this is a difficult thing, I think, for a lot of men. We're taught that we're supposed to be, the breadwinners of the family. Mm-hmm. We're taught that we're supposed to be bringing in, the income. And for 7 years of our marriage, my career was both of our full-time jobs. Pandemic hits. We had some savings, from touring and everything, but my wife had to go out and get a job, and she ended up, bringing in more money than I was, bringing in. I was teaching some lessons and everything, but there was a certain aspect of that, and I'm a feminist. I'm straight up. I will go right ahead and be on Manlihood podcast and say, Manlihood ManCast.
Yeah.
And say, yes, I'm a feminist. I am all about equality. Mm-hmm. Straight up. I really am. I would venture to say I'm more of a feminist than even my wife is. but there is something heavily rooted in the way that I was raised, in the culture that we're raised in things that are changing, where as a man, being like having to learn that humility of no, my wife makes more money than me at this point, and being okay with that. There was a certain aspect of that where I was not okay with that for a second, where it was, and even now, like with talking to people, it can still be kind of, I'm getting my career back and everything. Mm-hmm. I'm doing my first, packed out concert tour in a while. But it's a healthy tour, it's what, I think it's 9 or 10 shows in 2 weeks. Like, mm-hmm. I'm like, I feel like I'm back. I feel like I'm back in my guitar career and everything. But I also feel like my guitar career was a car that I crashed into a wall, and now I'm starting it back up again and everything. Yeah. And there's a humility in that too. That is humbling in itself, and kind of going back to square one in a way, learning more and more about just being human. Feeling those feelings and being okay with it. Just and a lot of putting trust in God to make it right, to do what is right. He knows what, if I think we were talking earlier, I've got this, and if I don't, God's got it,
Yeah. So you had talked about having some health problems in there too. So there was the depression and the mental health, and then some health problems as well.
So
right?
I think we've talked about Lyme disease a little bit, which mm-hmm. is a bit of a mystery. Lyme disease is a weird. You had a little bit of a. Yeah. Did you have a thing?
Well, I got bit by a tick,
uh-huh.
and then got really sick.
Mm-hmm.
And you call the doctor, and they're like, "Look, by the time we get the blood test back, we should have treated you."
So they have you take the antibiotics,
and then and I was really sick for about a week and a half, really bad. And then I've had some fatigue and things after that, but it's hard to tell whether the fatigue is being in my 40s and fat, or if that's you know what I mean. But so yeah, Lyme's disease is weird because it's like. So they never even tested me for it, but when they gave me the antibiotic for it, I got better, so it could have been that. It seems like it was that.
Yeah. It's, I know that for me, symptoms didn't really start showing up until about, 2 years after the first tick bite that I ever had.
And it can be like that.
Yeah, and mine never got diagnosed either.
Right.
We got it tested, but it came back negative, but they were like, well, but tests are some kind of, so a lot of the symptoms were very similar. I had done like a few rounds of like supplements. Like I mean, at that point, 2 years in, they're not going to have you do a bunch of antibiotics.
Right. Yeah.
Or if you did, like, I don't know, a lot of what I kind of heard about it, it was kind of like, well, we got kind of a natural approach going, Japanese knotweed, some other things. I don't really remember because it's been a while since I've taken any of this stuff, but I had a lot of fatigue. Sugars would hit me really hard. Sugars still do kind of, but I'm doing a lot better. And to be honest, Josh, I feel like a lot of it, I feel like it was almost more, I hope it doesn't sound too woo-woo or anything, but it almost felt like a lot of it had more of an emotional cause, that I was so wrapped up in my career. I was so wrapped up in perfectionism, if people watch the videos of what I do, if you type in Mark Kroos on YouTube, and you see the videos and stuff, and I'm not saying this to be like, oh, I'm such a good guitarist or anything, but like putting those arrangements together, some of them took like 4 years of like hardcore like practice and technicality, and on some level I got some great joy out of that. Mm-hmm. But on other levels, is it healthy? I don't know, man. Right. Like on other levels, I look back, I'm like, I don't know if I can get myself to do something that complicated again. Mm-hmm. I don't know if I'm that much of a perfectionist anymore.
If you need to.
Or if I need to. I don't. I've had a lot of folks on this tour. I think it's a lot of the times it's a question of our parents' generation a lot of the time. Mm-hmm. of so what's next? What's your 5-year plan and everything? And this is very much a testing the waters tour. People are asking me what's next. I'm like, I have no idea. I'm doing a podcast with my friend Josh, after this. Like it's very much a, I don't know what's next for music, in general, like in our world, what live music really looks like. I can tell you that I've been very happy with the way this tour has gone so far. I'm going to get home and probably start putting feelers out about the next tour. I don't know if it'll be to Texas or what. I'll probably kind of, say a prayer and see what the next like request is, because when you book a tour, some of it, I have a network, I have a substantial network because I toured for 10 years of places that I'll go back to. But then you get folks, sending emails saying, hey, could we bring you in here or there? And so we'll kind of see what comes in the future. And I might kind of base it around that. The thing that I'm very, very passionate about that is next, I should say this is the next thing. I have a vocal album that I need to finish, and I'll be playing a few songs from it tonight at Open Arms. Awesome. And it has been my passion project for 4 or 5 years, but it would always get interrupted by tours. In fact, right now, technically it's getting interrupted by this tour, but it's almost done. It's very, very close to being done. We recorded the drums for it in early 2018. And I love these songs, and it's kind of an alt country kind of feel. Mm-hmm. Some of my favorite bands are Lucero. I love Drive By Truckers, Jason Isbell. Mm-hmm. So it's a little bit that kind of feel, and I love the way it's turning out. I really, really do, and I just need to record the vocals on it. But that'll be out in the fall. Maybe by the time you put up this podcast, I'll have a pre-sale up on my website for it. I'll probably try to do that. So, but I've always loved writing lyrics, but there's something so vulnerable about singing songs, about writing lyrics. There's something vulnerable about singing in general, because that is the closest instrument that you have to yourself. Like I have my guitar playing, but it's like, that's not part of my body, like my voice is right here. And writing lyrics, I put my heart into it more than anything else, any other art that I do. And so the idea of sharing that, it feels very, very, very vulnerable, but I think I've really learned over the past couple of years that the more things that we can do in our lives that bring out our vulnerabilities, like that's really where we grow, man.
Yeah.
Like that's really, really where we grow. And I think that for men and women, I mean, people need to be able to talk about their feelings.
Yeah.
Straight up. You got to talk about your feelings with people.
I think that's easier for women by default most of the time.
I don't know, because I don't know what it's like to be a woman.
That's true.
You know what I mean? Like, and I think that's a big thing with the way that we approach anything in our culture. I don't know what it's like to be a woman. I don't know what it's like to be a man who wishes he was a woman. I don't know what it's like to be gay. I don't know what it's like to be any of those things. I know what it's like to be a straight white man, you know? Like, and so within that, it's so hard. It's hard for me, you know, it's hard for me to make decisions for other people or say, you know, but I do think it's important. I think it's important for men to talk about their feelings. 'Cause man, like I run into a lot of dudes where, like I run into some guys where like they'll say something like, yeah, I cried one time. I'm like, oh, I cried one time. It was like this morning, you know,
like 10 minutes ago.
like feel your feelings.
Yeah.
You know, it's okay. It's not just okay. It's necessary. Like it's so necessary.
I think we have a cultural situation where it's almost like a faux stoicism, and I call it that because stoicism.
Hey, I like that phrase, man.
Stoicism is not about denying the fact that you have emotions or feelings. You know, like you actually have the emotion, but you don't let the emotion master you. So you process it, and then you make decisions based off of logic and truth and those kinds of things, weighing the emotion properly. You know, but this John Wayne, Rocky Balboa, you know, Chuck Norris culture that we have, which, and it's funny because all of those guys had emotions, you know what I mean? But the image that they portray, you know, that's out there, we like, yeah, it's like we want all of the benefits of stoicism where we think with logic and with truth and with, you know, common sense, but we don't want to feel the emotion because it's uncomfortable. Yeah. And so we try to pretend like it's stoicism, but it's faux stoicism.
Faux stoicism. Josh Hatcher, ladies and gentlemen. That's great, man. And it's funny as you were listing off those, you know, those characters, John Wayne, Chuck Norris, you know, and that stoicism, like as a man, I don't know about you, but like those are the guys I want to be. You know what I mean? Like those are the guys like when you think of being a man, and you know there's I imagine the more men that I meet and I talk to about this, the more men I realize are I can't say it without swearing.
It's all good. You can swear.
No, I won't. I really try not to in this setting anyway. I am so holy. Oh man. But what I think it is for me is I see other men as always having their act together. I see a guy on the street, I'm like, for whatever reason, I look at him like, that dude has his act together. That dude has his act together. And never feeling like I have my act together. And I've just had a few just really, really great moments over the past couple of years of being with, you know, a bunch of dudes and realizing that nobody has their act together.
Yeah, we're all screwed up.
Nobody has their act together. It is amazing. It feels really freeing and incredible to be able to see, you know, we all, as men too, we try to look hard, you know, we try to look hard. Like that's the thing. Like that is like, I love tattoos. I think it's awesome. And one day I'll get tattoos. One day I'm going to get this arm sleeved because I like tattoos. But I need to get to a point where I won't feel like a poser.
Right.
You know, I won't feel like I'm trying to look hard. You know what I mean?
So get like doves and hearts and rainbows and swirlies, you know, like then you can have your arm all tatted up and it doesn't look hard. Like teddy bears. You know?
I have no idea, man. I have no idea. I really do think they look cool. Like I'm never looking at a guy who has tattoos and being like, oh, that guy's a poser or anything. I'm like, no, that guy looks awesome. Like that guy looks like he has his act together, you know?
But when you talk to him, and if he's willing to be open, he's got the same stuff that everybody else is going through, you know?
Yeah, man. And so much of this, you know, we were talking about like, you know, trying to appear hard. We walk with our shoulders back and everything down the street, chest out and stuff like, you know, and so much of this work over the past year for me has been about softening, you know, and not taking life so seriously. You know, like that's a big thing. Not taking myself so seriously, because I really felt for a long time like, you know, my guitar career was the most important thing in the world to me, and then I saw the world without my guitar career. World was doing just fine, you know. World was doing, yeah. I mean, we were in a global health crisis. It was a little rough.
Just fine is debatable, but I know what you mean. It still turned.
But it's been a very important couple of years for me.
Yeah.
You know, very important and hard lessons, man. But just I wouldn't trade them in, you know.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So I know we got to get moving forward for a concert that you've got to do here in a little bit. Let me ask you a couple questions.
Yeah.
That I like to ask all my guests. There's actually 3.
Yeah.
The first one, and we kind of hinted at this earlier, but the first one is this: What does it take to be a man?
There's a lot of, you know, questions about what does it mean to be a man.
Exactly.
In our culture today, what does it mean? You know, I mean. Did you talk at all about that Will Smith Chris Rock slap when that happened?
I haven't on the podcast yet. I have talked about it in our group, like in the discussion group a little bit, and had some. You know,
that was a very interesting thing to have happen in our.
So yeah, it was. And then as a man, like the self-control aspect is one thing that we value in a man, but also defending your wife is something that we value in a man. So it's almost like. I don't know how I feel about it.
Right? Yeah. I was also like it was very interesting when it happened because it definitely put me in the spot of, you know, if I were Will Smith and, you know, asking, well, am I doing this because everybody's eyes are on me? Am I doing, you know, the way that I'm behaving in this situation? But yeah, anyway, like those kinds of things, there's a lot of talk in our culture. You know, there's that term toxic masculinity that gets thrown around, which I believe is a real thing, but it's not that all masculinity is toxic, and that's the thing that gets very, very dangerous because we need good, strong men, you know?
Yeah.
And I had a great conversation with my friend Ryan recently about the idea of being protective but respectful. To tell my wife, I am 100% here for you. In any, you know, you and I right before we started, we were talking about the Will Smith Chris Rock slap and everything. And however you know, viewers or listeners feel about that, you know, that part is, I don't like talking about celebrities too much because it's just it's not us, you know. It's not like
who even knows if it's real anyway.
Who even knows if it's real, you know? But it did bring up questions for me, like how would I behave in that situation? But to tell my wife, I am 100% here for you for anything that you need me to do, but to also respect. There is a certain amount you just have to respect that your wife, that my wife, that everybody's wives, they've got it. You know, that is part of being a feminist, you know, is to be protective, but to be respectful. Part of, being a feminist as a man. At least the way that I would say it. But I have gained, I already, obviously had a lot of respect for my wife before the pandemic, but I look up to my wife so much. She is absolutely amazing. I'm sorry, it didn't really answer the question, man. It really didn't.
That's okay though, because it was a great discussion.
Yeah.
Like, I asked these questions because I know that what comes out of it is what we need to hear from you. You know what I mean? Like, that's a good answer. That's a good thing to talk about.
But as far as the question goes, I think that is something that our entire culture is very much on and myself included. I'm on this path too. I'm 36 years old, and I really thought I'd have my act together by the time I was 36 years old. But as we talked about, that's not going to happen anytime soon.
I wonder how many guys look at you and think he's really got his act together.
Oh, man, poor
Probably
guys.
a lot more than you think.
Like, oh man, they'll be sorely disappointed the minute I open my mouth. But it's something that I've been asking myself a lot over the past year. What does that mean? Yeah, it's a great question. You stumped me.
Well, this one might also get a little bit deep. So let's say you run into the 8, 9, 10-year-old version of Mark Kroos.
Like when I was 8 or 9?
Yeah.
Oh, man.
So you, big Mark Kroos, gets to meet up with little Mark Kroos.
Yeah.
And you got the opportunity to tell him one thing. What do you want to tell him?
That's heavy because I've done a lot of inner child work over the past couple of years, There's a lot of growing up in the church. If we're not careful with our kids, there's a lot of it that can turn into shame. Mm-hmm. And I think, I know 100% what I tell the kid. I tell him, man, it's going to be okay. Like, that's what it would be. It's going to be okay. Like, it's going to be okay. And you're loved, and that it's okay to love yourself. Like, that is not something that we are taught much in the Christian church. I mean, depending on your church, but like, I think we often can end up looking at self-love as some kind of narcissism, but it's really very much the opposite. I had a friend tell me not that long ago, if your neighbor comes to you and he asks for a cup of flour and you don't have a cup of flour for yourself, you're not going to be able to give a cup of flour to your neighbor. If you don't have any love for yourself, you're not really going to be able to give love to others. And it's not a build up of the ego or anything like that, but it comes down to knowing that you're a child of God. It comes down to knowing that God loves you, and therefore you love yourself, But yeah, sorry, I kind of went on a tangent there.
That's good.
But yeah, I run into some people where I haven't asked that specific question to them, but I run into some people that'll talk about like their younger self as like a little brat or like a dumb 17-year-old kid or something. Like, what was I thinking? And they'll be so hard on this kid, and it breaks my heart, man. Like, it just breaks my heart because like, ain't easy being 17, Like, that's a tough time. It's not easy. It's not easy being, 7, 8, or 9, especially like being picked on and stuff like that. People are often willing to give others grace more than we give people credit for. I think people give people a lot of grace. They really do. But the person they will not give grace to is themselves, And I think people need to be willing to give themselves a little bit of grace sometimes. Yeah.
All right, my next question. What's your best advice for the men that are listening today? You've given a lot of really good advice, by the way, all the way through. So.
Oh, I didn't mean for it to be advice. Gosh.
No,
don't listen to me. My best advice for the men listening today is don't listen to me. I don't know. I mean, I really, I do come back to, fellowship. So that's a difficult word, though. Fellowship is, like I don't mind the word fellowship. It's great. It's a word we use in the church a lot, like food and fellowship, you know, but food is the big important one. And, and it's almost like it's a step down from friendship, even. Like, it seems so cordial. Like,
right.
But I'm talking about have friends that you can open up to. You know, and I don't know, a lot of the men that I run into, a lot of my male friends are better at opening up to their female friends than to their male friends. And personally, you know, and I think that's fine. I mean, I open up to my wife probably better than I do to a lot of my male friends, but I've really been trying to get better at opening up to other men. And I don't necessarily try to pry feelings out of other guys, but usually what I find is I'm like, okay, I'm going to check in, you know, I'm going to check in with Chris, you know, see how he's doing and everything. Like, I'm going to check in, like, be like, hey man, you know, I haven't seen you in a while. Just wanted to see how you're doing with this thing that you know, just mentioned a little bit and stuff. Be like, yeah, man, I'm fine.
Okay, we're good then. Yep, that's it.
And I won't push. I'll just be like, okay, cool. See you, you know. Yeah. And I'm trying to get better at that kind of thing, but you know, don't bottle up your feelings. I think it's something that we've been doing for far too long as men, as people, you know, and women do it too, you know. Like it's just that is something where I believe on some level that you can bottle them up too much, man. And I don't know. Some folks believe that, myself included, believe that you can end up having, like, you know, even physical ailments bottling stuff up for too long. You know,
think so, man.
Like, but yeah, talk about your feelings. You know, go into that discomfort. Like, go into why is it uncomfortable? Why is it uncomfortable to be, you know, you can answer, well, it's because you're vulnerable. Why is it uncomfortable for you to be vulnerable? You know, ask yourself that string of questions. Go into that. And I don't know, I guess that's what I would say.
Hey, I think that is excellent advice, and it's something we can definitely think about and talk about. And I agree with you 100%. I think it's an important thing to do. And, you know, and like you said, it's a man and woman thing, but especially, you know, within this context, as a man, it's difficult, and it's something that we have to do more. And I have found that, and you know what, and maybe not everybody's ready for it, but find somebody that you can talk to about it.
Yeah, because I mean, like, let's face it, you know, I mean, not everybody, you know, you can hear this podcast, you know, as the listener, you can hear this podcast and go, okay, I'm going to go open up to my friends. And your friends, you know, they might not be ready for feelings. Like, so tell people about the ManCast, you know? Yeah. Tell people so they can listen to it too and also want to open up about it.
Invite them to go on a long drive with you, put in this episode, and then talk about it.
Josh, I think at this point, if we've got guys listening to this together in the car, they've probably already turned us off. So
it's all good.
They're probably like, guys, we're not talking about this. Nope.
So, Mark, if people want to get connected with you, with your music, I know you've got an album that you're working on. What's the best way for them to
Yeah, so all of my music, you know, you can find it on all of the platforms. If you do want to download it from my website, that's on a donation basis even. But, like, you know, Spotify, Apple Music, however you listen to music. It's Mark Kroos. Kroos is spelled Kroos. It's spelled just like kangaroos without the anga. but I'm sure Josh has it written in the title or wherever on this podcast. So all over, connect with me on Facebook, social media. I've really enjoyed TikTok recently, to be honest, because it's just quick 15-second videos, and it's pretty fun. I do think by the time this podcast airs, I'll probably have a pre-sale up for the new album on my website, which will be the vocal album. But yeah, social media, all that. The dueling banjos video on YouTube is the one that people go to. That was the video that got pretty big in 2013, really kind of got me my guitar career. But my favorite video, I think, and Nora would agree on this, I think her favorite video is Come Together by the Beatles. She did the editing on that one, and she was very proud of it, and so am I.
I think one of my favorite things that I've seen you do, by the way, just to throw it out there, is playing 2 AC/DC songs at the same time.
Oh, that's a fun parlor trick. Yeah. I believe, if you typed in Mark Kroos AC/DC, there's a video of that. Yeah. There's a video of that. Yeah. I play I learned a while back to be able to play Thunderstruck and Back in Black at the same time. And
it's fun.
It's really fun. I mean, it's really fun. Like, it's not the whole song or anything. That wouldn't sound very good, but it's a snippet, you know?
Yeah. That was one of my favorite little things when I like to watch. But yeah, so awesome, guys. Make sure you check out Mark. Look at the stuff he's doing. And if you want to reach out to him, I'm sure he'd welcome a message or an email. So
yeah, definitely. Definitely. Thanks a lot for listening, folks. And Josh, seriously, thanks so much for having me on. I've been wanting to do this for a long time. I'm so glad we got to do it in person.
We've been talking about it for years, actually.
Yeah,
I'm really glad.
This was a blast, man. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Mark, I appreciate so much the time that you spent with us at my house as my guest, the performance that you gave at Open Arms. And I'm going to tell you what, I really, really enjoy this conversation with you. So I appreciate it. Listen, if you appreciate what you're hearing from Mark, if you want to check out his music, please, the links are in the show notes. And, if you've got a place or you know of a place that would be interested in having him play, why don't you get in touch with him? Let's book him in your city. Also, guys, let me talk to you about something else real quick. We've got a limited run of this. This was made by our friends at Hemp Mafia. It is our Dirty Beard Oil. This is made with CBD, so that's going to be full of all kinds of benefits for you. It's also got some oils in here like cinnamon and lemon and peppermint and some other things that have antibacterial properties. So, yeah, it literally will make your dirty beard clean. And I want you to have it. So it's for sale. We've got a limited run. If this does well, this will be a product we carry often. But for right now, if you want to get it, go to manlihood.com/store. We've got some other goodies in there as well. Gentlemen, it has been a pleasure hanging out with you today. I just want you to know that I love you and I care about you. And I'll see you next time.
If you want to be a better man, check out our website, manlihood.com, for blogs, videos, and more from our Manlihood team. And you can also join our private Facebook group, Manlihood ManCave, where you can meet up with a band of brothers who will challenge you and help you on your journey of manhood. This episode is produced by Hatcher Media for manlihood.com. Be sure to subscribe and leave us a review on iTunes, YouTube, or wherever you're listening to the show. Tune in again for more of the Manlihood ManCast.